In 1961, a Greek freighter was in the ocean near the Bahamas. When they spotted something out adrift into the far, far horizon, they decided to go that way and take a look. When they got there, they looked into the waters below, and they saw a young girl waving up to them, almost dead. Found in the middle of the ocean, drifting through the waters on a tiny, tiny little dinghy. She looked frail, dehydrated, badly sunburned. They rescued her and rushed her to a nearby hospital for treatment. But the question on everyone's mind was, how does an 11-year-old girl get lost in the Atlantic Ocean? How? Nobody ventures out on their own, especially on a small little dinghy like that. What was supposed to be a memorable vacation turned out to be a horrible vacation. I'm talking murder, abandonment. There were so many stories behind what led up to this particular day. Her father was a very established and known optometrist, and he decided he was going to take a very memorable vacation with his 3 children and his wife to the Bahamas, so they chartered a yacht. But the voyage turned into a horrific killing rampage, with one survivor. That was Terry Jo, 11-year-old. And her father had brought along a friend. He was going to be the captain of the ship. So they saved up for this trip. They were very excited. And they were going to spend a week out there. They were going to have a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of activities. It's going to be a lot of good times. So ahead they went, booked the yacht, booked the vacation, and off they went. So they went to Fort Lauderdale. Destination was the Bahamas, where they were going to explore the surrounding islands. Now, the captain of the ship, like I said to you, was a family friend. He was going to bring the family there safely. He was a respected war hero who decided to bring along his wife. They had recently just married. So everything was going according to plan. I mean, for 4 days, things were pretty good. There was no friction. Everyone was getting along. Everybody was happy. And then on the 5th night, that's where things went terribly wrong. So Terry went and decided to stay in her cabin a little bit earlier. So she went downstairs. She was just below deck. And sometime during the night, she was suddenly awoken by the sounds of screaming coming from the upper deck above. She knew right away something was wrong and rushed upstairs. When she got there, she witnessed the most gruesome scene of her life. She saw her brother, covered in blood, screaming. Her mother also had been stabbed, blood everywhere. No one knew that night that the captain would go on a killing rampage. But let me give you a little more information prior to this vacation. So a few months earlier, this captain who they asked to come along with his wife, who was a friend of the father's, his name's Harvey, he was facing some serious financial problems. Apparently he married his wife so that he could take out a life insurance policy on her and later kill her. He had chosen that night on the boat to murder his wife and dispose of her body in the deep waters, and then claimed that she got lost at sea. She started screaming for help. When the father came out and heard the woman's cries, he rushed to save her, but it was too late. The captain already had killed her. So while in the middle of all this, he didn't want any possible witnesses, so he ended up killing the entire family on deck, but he missed one person though. The sole survivor. She was downstairs asleep, while he was upstairs murdering her whole family. That's when she heard those sounds and made her way up where she saw her brother, and then saw her mother also lying on the floor, all covered in blood. She said she went up to the captain, and he slapped her and he shoved her down and told her she needs to go back downstairs or she'll be the next to be killed. So she went back downstairs, sat there, and couldn't believe what she saw and heard up there. While all this is going on, the crazy lunatic captain upstairs opens the sea valves on the boat just to sink it on purpose. And he's got her down there so that she can drown. So as the water levels start to rise, right, she comes upstairs again, and he starts to come towards her. She runs in order to save herself. What he does next is very cowardly. He sees her and he says, "You know what? Where's that life raft that was attached to the boat?" And she says, "I don't know." And he suddenly looks over to the side and he sees it. And he grabs it and he tells her, "Wait right here, I'll be back." Instead, he takes the raft, cuts the rope off, throws it into the water, and jumps into the water and swims towards the boat, leaving her on the ship to sink. Terry was now left abandoned on that sinking yacht, and she was afraid she was going to go down with it. But she was a little stronger than anyone could have imagined. What happened next is going to shock you. As the boat's getting deeper and deeper in the water, she sees a small little cork float on the yacht. So she rushes over, unties it, and sees that as her last hope as the boat starts to go underneath the waters. The next day, the captain is found floating in that dinghy that he took off in. He was rescued by the Coast Guard, and he had the dead body of his wife still with him, which he used as an excuse to prove himself innocent. Back on land, he was telling an astonishing tale of how the mast had broken on the ship. It sparked the fire, it sank the boat. He claimed the boat sank everyone on it, except him. He said he tried to revive his wife who had drowned in the sea but failed in doing so. Until 4 days later, something strange happened. A miracle happened. While the captain's busy convincing the police about his story of survival, Terry's fighting to survive in the waters of the ocean. She's drifting in the Atlantic in this tiny little cork float. No access to food or water. 4 days she's out there, the sun's beating on her. Nothing to eat, nothing to drink. She's suffering from hypothermia during the night and that scorching sun during the day. It left her skin burnt and dehydrated. On that 4th day, she was spotted in the water by a Greek freighter passing by through the Bahamas. The captain of that ship described her as extremely sunburned and frail. They rescued her, brought her up on the ship. Her condition was critical. She collapsed onto the deck and then brought to a nearby hospital for treatment. Now, as the news of her survival had taken everybody by storm, she was being referred to as the Sea Orphan. Now, the news eventually reached the ears of the captain, who couldn't believe that the girl was able to survive. He was pretty sure that when he left and jumped into the water and took off on what he thought was the last boat, he figured she wasn't strong enough to survive that and she would sink with the ship. But then he started to get fearful. Then he was afraid once she talked, that was it, game over for him. So out of fear that the truth might come to light and get him in trouble, he took his own life in his own hotel room. Terry eventually was adopted by her relatives. She did get medical treatment that day. She did return to Green Bay. She was with her family, her adopted family, her father's sisters and their children. She was given a lot of love and support by the family, but like I said, never opened up about the event. She had changed her name and moved to Germany at one point. Then she sought some psychiatric help, and after all these years, a psychiatrist asked her, "How did your parents die?" And that's when she began to open up about her past.